every human being lives in assumptions. From 3 years old, we have an idea that other people think differently about us. It's called the theory of mind. And it's innately, we have this skill because we need to read people's facial expression and body language in order to see if we could be safe or not. So every human being has that capacity and uses it to its fullest. And the problem sometimes is that we don't realize that we live in our assumptions. We imagine that our assumptions are reality, and then we don't reality check.
Hey everyone, this is Kim O'Neill from the Every Day is a New Day podcast and live show, and you're listening to the Going North podcast with the hilarious Dom Brightmon. Be sure to subscribe to his show so you don't miss any episodes, and remember, every day is always a new day.
Today's episode is sponsored by yours truly, Dom Brightmon's wonderful book, Stay the Course, The Elite Performer's 7 Secret Keys to Sustainable Success. Grab it on ebook, audiobook, or paperback book and share this gift to your friends, family, heck, even no matter what season it is, for that wonderful person in your life that needs to advance their next level in their career or just needs a quick pick-me-up to get through their day and beyond to thrival level. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, known as GMP the Great, we have finally reached a freaking milestone, indeed, the official milestone of episode 500. And we got one heck of a super special, awesome guest for you today, because this also doubles as a host-to-host special, because today's guest in particular, she had me on her show, and she has one heck of a resume that's at least 5 days long. Let me tell you a bit about today's guest, because she is a doctor, y'all, a wonderful doctor, y'all, but more specifically, a psychotherapist, a radio/podcast host, and an international speaker. You heard that right, folks. An international speaker and author of 5+ books, including a 6th book indeed. And did I mention that her doctorate is in clinical psychology, and she's also a licensed marriage and family therapist, practicing online and in her office in Southern California. So that's right, SoCal swag indeed. And to make it even better and not butter, she's a founder of something. She found something, y'all. She is the originator of the awareness integration, educational and psychological theory and intervention. And she also published an international best-selling book called Life Reset, The Awareness Integration Path to Create the Life That You Want. So let's give it up for the fabulous and Zeine when she's in the right mood. One and only Dr. Foojan Zeine. How you doing today, Dr. Foojan?
I'm doing fabulous, wonderful, and it's so nice to be with you again, Dom, and I love it. Let's just have a beautiful conversation and a dialogue together.
Oh, yeah, that's right indeed. That's right indeed. Because my goodness, like usually sometimes with the more seasoned folks, I ask them if they see themselves where they are at the age of 13. But in your case, it was probably starkly different.
Where I saw myself at the age of 13, to be honest with you, at the age of 13, I thought when I was 40, it was too late, then I would be dead. So I'm 60. And then I thought, I'm 60, by the way. I've got 20 more years after that. And I figured, hey, I'm still alive. That's a good thing. But to be honest with you, at age 13, I think my view was that I was going to have, my own business. I was going to have my house. I was going to be married by the age 30. Well, by 28, I had all of them. I was married. I had an amazing flower business, actually, flower design business in Beverly Hills, and, gave a lot of the flowers for Beverly Hilton and the restaurants around there, and also all the boutiques in Rodeo Drive. And then I started going to classes, and I went to therapy myself to see how, it worked for me. And suddenly I just fell in love with psychotherapy. And I went back to school, graduate school, to become a psychotherapist. And then since then, it's been an amazing ride and a privilege to be with people, in their life, and they take me into their head and into their life, and you are with them while they go through their suffering, and then walk with them through their greatness and successes and recovery. And I feel like I'm blessed.
Oh, yeah. Blessed in more ways than one. That's right, indeed, because she is 60, but she's absolutely freaking stunning. My goodness, indeed. That's right, indeed. I slide into her DMs if she wasn't already spoken for, and if there wasn't a minor age gap.
And I actually, going through a lot of ups and downs in relationships, I married someone who I really love. And I think it also gives you, and for everybody who's listening to us, if your energy is getting sucked into, bad relationships, it doesn't work for you. And for me, it's like the minute that the relationship was really giving me energy versus sucking the energy out of me, it just flourished, like life just flourishes. And I've been working on the psychological model awareness integration for a long time, but finally all of that started flourishing with 2 books that are already published, and the third one, which is in the process of being published. Any day it'll be out. And we're working on an app, which will allow people to go through the whole, like a personal coach that they will go through, and they can work through the app. I'm training coaches and psychotherapists in the model. So it's really, really exciting. And I can tell you exactly that just having a space that is nurturing around us, it just like allows you to concentrate and do what you're supposed to do in a really, grand way. So.
Oh, yeah, that's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So, my goodness, from flower business to psychotherapy, my goodness. So, like with that switch, I guess in a way, it's still entrepreneurship by default since you have your own practice and everything. Like, I guess, what led you to psychotherapy? Was it going to a therapist yourself and getting inspired? Like, what led to that?
I had a rough childhood. My parents got divorced, and when I was about 5, and they had a lot of, anger and rage with each other. So I kind of was raised in that. And then I was actually abused. I was sexually abused from age 3 to 8. And then I came to the United States when I was 12 alone. So I went to a boarding school. And after that, the revolution in Iran happened. And I started kind of working 3 jobs at age 17 and kind of like getting myself through school and coming. And as I said, I wanted to be married. I wanted to have a business. I wanted to own a house. And by the time that I got all of these, I was not happy, Dom. I was depressed. And it was like, what is wrong? I got everything I said I was going to get. So how come I'm so depressed? So I did go to marital therapy. The marriage ended anyway, but it took me to the therapy world, and I did go to psychotherapy, and because I needed to work on myself and find out that it wasn't just like go, 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 survive, survive, survive. And yes, I did a good enough survival, but now that I was going to be able to live, I didn't know how to live because I just knew how to survive, So in order to work on my own depression and anxiety, I went to psychotherapy, and then I just fell in love with it. And I thought, a lot of people in the world, either they have been traumatized, abused in one way, or, by people or situations, and we deserve to have a fulfilling life. So every single kind of therapy school that was out there, I went to learn. I had different types of therapists, female, male, from different kind of theories, the cognitive theories, the emotional theories, all of the physical and body oriented, all of the trauma releasing one, hypnosis, eye movement desensitizations, biofeedback, neurofeedback. I learned them all, and I did them on myself. I went to therapists they could work on me because I just wanted to experience each one of them. So then what I saw was each one of them they come from a different view and an angle. And there's some parts of them that are amazing, but it's just missing another part, which another theory was offering. So I just brought them all together. and created a model that is inspired by all of the theories and the best that is out there. But you know how you put them together and then suddenly it becomes so efficient because you get the best out of all of them. So the awareness integration theory deals with all of these angles. It looks at your thought process and beliefs and schemas. It looks at all of your emotions and emotional regulation and the skills that you need to have. It looks at all of the behaviors and, actions that you do and how you do it and what the type of an impact or type of a result you create based on the thought process and emotions and behaviors in your relationships. And then, you go back to the past. So we deal with the present moment and really becoming aware, putting like a camera inside and a camera outside. You really become aware of that. And then we look at some of the belief systems that are just not working and they keep stopping us. And then we'll go to the past. We'll go and create a healing from the different parts of us, which were kind of left. If it's too overwhelming for us, usually what happens, we split ourselves in order to be able to survive. So then we are left with all of these, split parts and inner children inside, which they don't need to be. Like if I'm 60 years old, I don't need to have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old and a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old living inside of me. That's just not real. So it's going back and opening those and clearing the past and the traumas you have, all the psychological blocks you have. So it doesn't show up as sabotages. How people say, okay, I'm going to learn the skill. I'm just going to go and do it. I'm going to get this much money. I'm going to get this type of a relationship. I'm going to do this and that. They get a business and they raise it up. And then another part of them comes in and sabotages it right out of them. Because if we haven't cleaned up the past, it for sure comes back and sabotages you. And it's not that it's intending to sabotage you. It's just really intending to say, take care of me. And as long as you haven't taken care of me, I'm going to do my old type of coping mechanisms, which might not fit the new ones. So then we clean up the past. And then after that, we come back and kind of like envision the tomorrow and re-envision yourself. Who do you intend to be? What kind of thoughts would you like to have? Would you like to concentrate on? What kind of emotions would you like to foster? What kind of behaviors, can you commit yourself to? And what kind of values can you take a stand on? And then based on that, we create goals and kind of move forward. So people can have these skills and these tools on their own versus always waiting for the outside world to do something for them. So it becomes a lot of feeling of agency and responsibility and accountability. And I think when you have that, then when you know that you're kind of the driver of your own car and you feel empowered and kind of in control based on your own system, you're not obviously any time in control of anything outside of yourself. But as long as you can feel like I'm in control of what's going on inside of me, then I can maneuver going around in life. So that's how awareness integration got created. And that's how it just, it all fell into place.
Yeah, that's right. Indeed. Sounds like you had a 5,000 piece puzzle that you put together, metaphorically speaking.
Absolutely. I love the way you said that. Yes, yes, yes.
So my goodness. And with your bright mind, it's no surprise you're able to do this because I still remember listening to some of your past interviews, how you actually graduated high school at 15. So it's no surprise you created the awareness integration model. So since you mentioned it's a fusion of all the different things that you've actually tested and proven with yourself, like for those listening in, probably need to grab not only Life's Reset, but your future book and some of your past books as well. What is the awareness integration model?
The awareness integration model is, first of all, is the distinction between the thought process, emotion, behavior, and the impact of it. So one aspect of it is that the thought happens inside of us, the emotion happens inside of us, the behavior happens based on those two from inside to the outside world, and the impact that it has, the effect that it has, is in the outside world. Well, a lot of times we run on automatic with belief systems. And if we're not aware, we live on automatic then. And then we create the same old results over and over again. And then sometimes we also have the dualities, a part of us wants something, another part wants another. Everybody who goes through addiction knows a part of them is just going to follow and go do whatever it wants. And another part knows better, but it's not being able to handle it. Anybody who's ever had an issue with their eating habits, they know, right? Like, they know they shouldn't be doing it, but they're going to do it anyway, right? So you always, every human being sees their dualities, the hypocrisy that happens. A lot of us, when we ask, do you ever lie? Well, of course not. I don't lie. I don't intend. And then, they observe themselves and they come back to my office and you're like, I probably lie about 10 per minute. But because I think I didn't want to, I just said, no, I don't. Like, there's a part of us that actually believes a story about us. But when you put a camera on yourself and you really observe, you'd be amazed and astonished at the behaviors you actually do and other people see. So the awareness of these pieces puts you in the driving seat. It doesn't, you're not always running on automatic and then trying to come up with some justification about stuff you've done, but you actually can be in the driver's seat and kind of be in control of yourself. So one part of this is the ability to distinguish between these so that you can be aware and so that you can make the changes and shifts as much as you want. We also live in relationships. There's no way in any format or any place that we don't live in a relationship, right? Even if you take someone and put them in one room, all white room, covered, with white plastic. And so there's no more stimuli. We talk to ourselves. We start talking to the wall because we relate. That's the only way that this self can exist. It's in relationship with something. So then we want to look at the way, imagining the way I view the world. So I view the world a particular way. I think about it. I feel about it. I do things in those relationships, and then I have an impact. And you can look at that in every area of life, right? So, for example, if it's your friends, your guests in your podcast, your parents, your mate, your children, career, even money, finances, sexuality, God, even the concepts you could imagine, you always have a relationship with them, right? So one idea is, what do I think and believe? And how do I feel about them? Another aspect is every human being lives in assumptions. From 3 years old, we have an idea that other people think differently about us. It's called the theory of mind. And it innately, we have this skill because we need to read people's facial expression and body language in order to see if we could be safe or not. So every human being has that capacity and uses it to its fullest. And the problem sometimes is that we don't realize that we live in our assumptions. We imagine that our assumptions are reality, and then we don't reality check. So we also want to become aware of that. How do I assume my mother, my father, my mate, my coworker, my boss, my child, anybody thinks of me? How do I assume they feel about me? I observe their behaviors toward me, but how do I put all of my assumptions about their behavior toward me? Because we react to that. And many times, if we're not realizing that we're living in our projections, we think that's the truth and we react to it as if it's the reality. And then, we ruin our relationships in a sense. So that's a concept of part of that relationship. So imagine an arrow going from me to outside, an arrow coming, my assumptions about outside to me, and then we take ourselves everywhere. So everywhere that I am, with anyone who I am, I also have a thought process about myself. Like, who am I as a wife? Who am I as a daughter? Who am I as a son of so-and-so? Who am I when I'm in my business? Who am I? Who do I think of myself as I'm, dealing with the finances and money? How do I feel about myself? And then what do I do to myself? Am I nurturing to myself, or do I scold myself? Do I punish myself, or am I forgiving of myself, right? So in every aspect, the same way your lungs are working at the same time that your heart is working and all the systems are working, we're consistently having these three forms of me having thought and process and emotions toward others, me assuming the way that they do to, they think about me and they feel about me, and me having an idea about my own identity as I'm with them. So part of the awareness is to distinguish between these things, because the more that you are aware of yourself, the more that you have the capacity to do something if you don't like it, or you can plan it and move forward with it. In these aspects, then we find what doesn't work, the belief systems that doesn't work, that are consistent, that are coming forward. So, for example, if you're someone who keeps going into relationships, let's say, right, and it doesn't work, the first one, the second one, and we always have like the justification of, well, obviously they were the wrong one, I'm the best, and there's something wrong with these people. And then it's like, well, how come you choose all of these wrong, even if they're wrong, you choose them? And then, when I was working with someone and they said, I'm 35 years old and I keep doing this pattern, as we went back and we saw the pattern that, one, she came from a divorced parent, so she never saw a healthy relationship. She didn't know. Plus that, however, she experienced relationship at age 13, 14, which, most of the 13, 14-year-olds are just getting steady with each other 1 or 2 weeks. They usually crush each other. They go with somebody else and the other person is crushed. And they make a lot of decisions about decision factors. And, you can never trust such and such. And you're going to make a lot of generalized decisions. So she realized that her 13-year-old was running the relationship show. And that part of her had never upgraded. She made certain decisions at age 13. And then she was like adamant that part was just going to take and go. And that part didn't really have a lot of appropriate beliefs, nor did it have the skills, because it was at the beginning of that. But she never upgraded her skills, although she was going to different relationships, but never bridged, that part of her with all the other skills she had learned. So part of the integration, so we talked about the awareness part of it, the integration part is noticing all of these separate parts which are operating on automatic for me. And they haven't really been upgraded with all of the skills that I've learned, with everything else that I've really experienced. So I'm sure you've come across with this, where people go to work and they learn how to communicate, because in the work ethics and the way that they expect you to communicate in a professional way, you can't really, give a lot of emotions and emotional expressions there. And it's very this is not professional. This is how you talk. Well, we learn this, and then we go back to our, holiday for Christmas or Thanksgiving or something. And the minute you open the door and your mother or father gives you one inclination, then you're screaming and yelling and having an emotional breakdown like you're a 2-year-old. I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to us probably have experienced that. That's what I mean by a part of us has upgraded the skill, but that skill has not bridged to the other parts of us. And we're like, I don't know what happens. I just see my mother and I get triggered and I act like a 2-year-old while I'm this top CEO in this company and everybody listens to me and I deal with major stuff all day and I can control my emotions. And I come in and I become a 2-year-old with my mother. Exactly, because these parts of you have not bridged. They haven't been integrated. They've kind of stayed separate in these categories and they're not together. So part of the work is also going and integrating these parts of you and being together. So now that you are holistic and in whole, that as having access not only to your vulnerabilities, but to your strength, now you want to create who you are and then set your goals and create action plans and see exactly, in order to get that goal, what kind of thought process, what kind of emotions, what kind of skills, what kind of, behaviors does it take to come to that goal? And if you don't have the skills, then you know where to go and get it and find it and not have the expectation that I should have just had all the skills. And if I don't, succeed at something, it's because I'm bad. No, maybe you just don't have the skills. And you've got to get the skills to be the great, to move forward. I remember Dom going someplace and one of the people beside of me was a billionaire. So he asked her, what is your range of the socioeconomic at this point? She said, well, I make about $120,000 a year. And he said, you want to go from 120,000 to become a billionaire? She said, yeah, I want to do that. And he said, do you have any idea how many zeros billions have? And she just looked at it. And he said, why don't you put your next goal to become a millionaire? Because it takes a skill to go from here with 100,000 to become a millionaire. And then it's a totally different game, totally a different outcome and, perspective if you're going to go from million to billion. You cannot go from someone who has the mentality and the idea of owning, like making $100,000 per year, suddenly jump into billions, because the skills, the outlook, the way people even define themselves and what they do and the surroundings and network and everything is so different that why don't you just go look at the next step? And it's beautiful that you're reaching out there and saying it, but the immediate goal should be just this. So that's what we look at. What is it that at this time, I have an idea of doing? I work with people who learn how to create a business, like a startup business, bring it up, and then they don't know how to go to the next level. So they fail right out here. And they keep thinking, I'm a failure. No, they're not a failure. They just don't have the next level of skill of what it takes to go from here to the next level. And a lot of people sabotage themselves by assigning something like, I'm bad, I'm a failure, and all of that, which is not true. It's just a matter of when we become aware of what type of skills this process takes and what I don't have. Then I can start looking at whether I want to have it. Do I still want to take this goal, knowing that this is what it takes there? And if I say yes, then get up and do it. So the awareness part of it helps you gear yourself and kind of fine tune yourself and be clear in where you're going, how you're going, and in the midst of it at the present moment, be fulfilled while you're doing it.
Boom. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's right, a whole mouthful indeed. Actually, reminds me of, funny enough, it's surprising I still remember the number. I think it was episode 170 with Rihanna Miller about how sometimes, similar to what you mentioned earlier, how sometimes we can attract the certain relationships over and over again without dealing with that inner child that hasn't bridged over properly, and how childhood trauma can sometimes show up in adulthood. And similar to what you mentioned with the whole bridge, it's like bridging it all together. It's kind of interesting how all that really comes together and how we self-sabotage ourselves if we don't really tap into finding the right people, the right resources to get that healing and deal with our issues and not make a whole wonderful magazine company of issues.
Exactly. And the unfortunate thing is that when we don't get what we say we want, we usually attack ourselves in one way or another. And to me, that's just not fair. It's not fair that we do this to ourselves. And then we assume not only we do this to ourselves, then we assume that the world is doing it to us. And then we hide and isolate or get angry at the world. And it's like, all of this there was very unnecessary. We don't need to battle with ourselves so much consistently. And that's what I think awareness integration does. When we've done this research as a psychotherapy model, we've done the research and it's been published. And it showed that we minimize depression about 75% and anxiety 68%, and we raise self-esteem and self-efficacy. We did it also as a self-help model, because when I got this Life Reset book, which was we put it in here as a self-help book, we took that also in Cal State Long Beach. And with 4 classes, we gave them modules of this book in different areas of their life. And they, worked on it, journaled, gave back to brought the assignment. And even just as a self-help, we still minimize depression 64% and anxiety 27%. And that's without a coach, without a therapist, just as a self-help model. And that's why, based on that, we got inspired to create the app, which hopefully will be launched in April or May.
Wait, that's what I'm talking about, getting in the app game indeed. Who needs the whole apple? Just get the app, y'all. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So my goodness, so since you've been on this wonderful interview tour for years, even appearing on Dr. Phil and heck, even dropping some magical knowledge at Harvard University, is there a question that you wish you'd be asked more often when you're on the guest side of the game on these interviews?
I think that the question is why, human beings just attempt to go through so much suffering. And not that suffering isn't out there, but I think that suffering, problems are out there, issues are out there, but I think the suffering is a little optional. So what my intention is by this model having the ability to, first of all, for 8 billion people, I'm extending it it's because the world population will become to have access to this model, to be able to do that and kind of eradicate emotional suffering. It doesn't mean that we don't go up and down and we don't have appropriate emotions. Anger is an appropriate emotion for the appropriate matter. Sadness and shame and all of them are appropriate emotions to have, depending on what's going on. But to actually eradicate the suffering. So that means that you could have the emotion based on what's happening, deal with the emotion, get the message of the emotion, release it, and, act upon what you need to do in order to take care of yourself and your surroundings and people you love and humanity as large. And I think that if we eradicate the emotional suffering, hopefully we'll also eradicate, abusing each other and being harmful toward each other and all of that. Because I think a lot of the times people do that, which they're already suffering inside, then they make sure other people are suffering. So the more we can eradicate suffering, I think that we could live together as humanity a lot in a softer place.
Oh, yeah, that's right. As soft as all the pillows. That's right. That's right. Pillows soft indeed. That's right indeed. And one heck of a great mission too. And I'm guessing that's one of the reasons why you got this wonderful app coming out too, as another tool to help spread the AIT around the globe.
Exactly. Yes. I think that the more, there are people who can just have the idea, have the ability to do it on their own, and that's all they need. And they can go work on themselves, and it's awesome. And there are other people who do really need a mirror. They need to be with a coach. They need to be with an accountability buddy. They need to be with a therapist. So that's why, there's also this concept of creating a certification program for the therapists and the coaches around the world so that, they can have this and they can work with people who really want to, and they're excited about eradicating their emotional suffering in a sense, and be clear and be intentional. The next book that is coming out is actually called Intentional Parenting, which it goes, stage by stage by different ages and teaches the parents in how to be with their children and be intentional. How do they work on clearing themselves so that whatever is happening is not, generation after generation just gets passed on to the next one. And if they work on themselves and they know how to work with the different developmental stages of their children as they're growing, that they will also teach how to emotionally regulate themselves. And if you do it, start from a younger age, when your kids are teens, you don't have as much problem because you've already, built the system in a way that they know how to be responsible, how to take care of their emotions, and they've gained all of those skills because you as a parent have that. And if you learn how to take care of yourself and then work with your mate, then you're creating an environment, not only that it fulfills you, because everybody, I think, has experienced this, that when your relationship is good, the world appears good. It doesn't matter how much money you have, how much success you have. If you're not good at your intimate relationship, the world appears to suck because your emotions are not, in the right place. So those are some of the places when you work on yourself, you work on your intimate relationship, you create a space for your, children to actually get raised in that environment, then it all, works out well for you. And you're going to create that fulfilling experience every day in your life. So it's like, how many years do you have to live? Might as well stop suffering and live beautifully.
Amen to that indeed. Live beautifully indeed. That's right. Intentionally and beautifully. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So my goodness, integrative parenting. So what led to that topic? Was that something that kept popping up with a lot of your clients recently? Was it a way of, I guess, because of your past and just making sure it doesn't help with other kids coming up behind you? Like what led to integrative parenting as the focus for this upcoming book?
When I was doing the work with one of a great friend who also has her PhD in child development, and she opened up, this was her dream. She actually took the AIT model to heart and she really worked on herself. And she found that her just what she wants to do in life and her calling is being with the early development child, so from zero, from infancy all the way to six. So she was working in a bank and she was, kind of like so depressed and she just couldn't handle like her life and she just didn't like it. And she went around the world, 40, I think 60 countries in 1 year. And she went to look at the different types of children's, the way that like the daycares work and children education was around the world. And she came back and she said, I want to create a daycare. Since the AIT has worked for me, let's see if we could do this AIT from an educational perspective and from a more of a proactive space. Not, psychotherapy sometimes it's like retroactive. Like a person grows up and they feel something's not working, they go to psychotherapy because they look at the past. But what if we took the same concept and looked at it as a proactive model as we're raising our kids from one from an educational place, then from a parenting place. So she has had her place for 6 years and has been working with the AIT model. And we've seen like astonishing results of kids as young as 2 years old have been able to create emotional regulation for themselves. And because they're regulated emotionally, they have this openness to learn quicker, because we learn more in a positive and neutral and happy space versus, if we're in a kind of negative space. So obviously they're learning a lot and their school readiness is high. The IQs are higher and they're learning everything much faster in this space. So then we figured, okay, if this is working and we really see how this is working out, then let's, gear also this concept into educators such as teachers and parents, because parents those are the two populations that work with children. So, the teachers of preschool, the daycares, preschool, and then, as they go up. And then we decided that we're going to also start creating groups and classes for junior high and high school, because obviously, as you know, junior high is, again, the toughest year for teenagers. Hormones are kicking and the brain is shifting and all of that. So I think these are part of what we see in, that it's becoming more and more difficult. More teenagers are becoming more depressed and anxious because of the social media, getting sexualized much earlier than they intended. They're getting confused in their gender identity faster. So a lot of these issues are coming to teens, as which we saw that if we could not only educate the educators to be able to support them and parents, but also to be able to take this model into the school systems and write to them, and so that they can really see and get the skills of how to take care of themselves emotionally, how to distinguish between their thoughts and actions. Teenagers are very impulsive, so they do actions without really thinking. So be able to teach them how to do that. So that's how it went. The first book was self-help. The second book is for therapists and coaches, for them to learn how to do this. And then the third one is for parents and educators to be able to do that. So I think my fourth book will be actually for couples, so that the couples can do that. So that's what's brewing in here, Dom.
That's right. Double toil and fabulosity instead of trouble.
Exactly.
That's
Yes.
Right. That's right, indeed. So my goodness. So big things to look forward to. That's right, indeed. So couples, look out, y'all. That's right. That's right. The doc is in. She's got you covered like 2 blankets, y'all. That's right, indeed. Had to double up on the blankets.
Yep. An electric one. It's going to be heated up.
There you
It's
go.
such a joy to talk to you. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be with you and your audience.
Oh, my pleasure indeed. My pleasure indeed. Well, time for a fun question you probably haven't even had before. So, since the other books aren't officially out yet, we'll guess Life Reset will be the focus for this one. So, if Life Reset was a food, what would it be and why?
If it was a food, what would it be and why? I think that it would be a really, really, really good steak with vegetables and potatoes. And then it also has amazing ice cream at the end. Yeah, it's a whole meal.
There you go. That's right.
It has the essentials. It has all the essentials, but then it also has the sweetness and the fulfillment and the excitement at the end.
There we go. That's what I'm talking about indeed, because it's an excitable book indeed. So that's right, folks. Protein and the sweetness all at the same time, and it's good for you. It's good for you indeed, and full of the vitamins. So yeah, so time for the question everybody gets to receive, and that is, if you were to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but you're in the year of 2022 with all of your knowledge and experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
Start getting to know yourself, love yourself, cherish yourself, and see what you're passionate about. And sometimes we know, and when we just kind of look back at our childhood and we look at if you didn't have anything to worry about, you weren't worried about your parents scolding you, if you weren't worried about finances, money, anybody else's approval, if you were left alone with all that you could do, what is it that you would really constantly gravitate to? And I think it's more like that's the natural you. That's your signature in this lifetime. If you can see that and sense that about yourself, then you could flourish that. There's always a career out there that flourishes what your naturalness is. And I remember even myself when I asked this question, when I got everything and, I had the businesses and all of that, and I'm like, I'm not happy. What is this? And then I realized that even since childhood, I was the best friend of everybody. Everybody was going to come and tell me their secret, and they knew that I would keep it. Everybody, like anybody who got sick, I would just go around them and hold them and hug them and hold them on my hand. And they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm healing." This is like, it was like 2 or 3. Like this essence of, that from childhood, I knew, like, you can heal each other and you could be with each other and you could listen to each other and all of that. And then it was like, well, how can I do that, which is the best? And obviously psychotherapy was what was out there already who could create this for me. And then so I went back to school to become a psychotherapist. And so that's what I would really say, like, find who you are, look back and just then flourish who you are, and then put that into some sort of a career that's out there that could earn you money.
Boom. There you have it, folks. That's right indeed. You heard it from the triple F herself, the flourishing, fabulous, and fantastic Foojan, the doctor, y'all. That's right indeed. That wonderful life signature, indeed. Get to know yourself, indeed, y'all. That's right. That's right indeed. If you wake up in a potato sack, that means you're doing it wrong, folks. I'm telling you. That's right indeed. Don't ask where that came from. I have no idea either. But for those who want an idea of where they can find you and keep up with all that you're doing and subscribe to your programs and everything, what's the best way for folks to do so?
They can go to FoojanZeine.com. FoojanZeine.com has everything in there. And, they can get the books. They can get the books from Amazon or, go to the website and see all of it and just keep up. All my social medias, Instagram, Twitter. Twitter is Dr. Zeine. I think everything else is Dr. Foojan Zeine, LinkedIn, Facebook. And I love to hear from people and, for them to share their world with me. And if anyone who is in your audience and listeners who are teachers, who are counselors, therapists, coaches, if there's any professors who they want to do research on different demographics, please, please, please call me. so we could kind of expand this concept everywhere.
Woohoo! Well, there you have it, folks. Reach out to the good doctor indeed. Reach out to the good doctor indeed. Yes, indeed, because she is on a wonderful mission. That's right. Eradicate that emotional suffering, y'all. That's right. Send it to the great beyond for good indeed, because hurt people, and healthy humans create more healthy humans, y'all. So that's right indeed. That's right indeed. So any closing thoughts before we close up shop, doctor?
I think we've said it all, and I really want to appreciate you. I really enjoyed when you were on my show. And by the way, my show for everyone, the podcast is called the Heartfelt Chat with Dr. Foojan, and go listen to me on the podcast. And it's been a blessing to be with you again and chat. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks a bunch for tuning in and setting aside some of your time to listen to this wonderful podcast, Going North. If you really enjoyed what you heard, do me a solid and share this with your network and someone that you care about that would get something out of it too. And be sure to subscribe to hear more, and heck, even check out the backlog if you would like, because there are hundreds of episodes to choose from, and they just keep getting better and not butter.